Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wonder Mother podcast. And I'm your host, Jenna McRory. I'm so excited about today's episode. I have a longtime friend, Katie, coming on today. She is an amazing woman. She holds 2 degrees. She's a CPA. She mentors. She has 2 girls, an 8-month-old and a 3.5-year-old. Plus, she's also starting a nonprofit around tech. So we're really excited to have her because she's going to educate us on all we need to know about kids, tech, how we can get involved in our communities, what we can do to keep our kids safe, and just some ideas of how we can approach this ever-changing world of tech we live in. So I'm super excited to have her. Katie, thank you so much for being here. How did you get involved with technology safety and protocols for kids in schools?
So essentially, I've always been really lucky. My older brother, John, he's 7 years older than me. He's always kind of been an outlier, kind of with like some norms and stuff. And he had really adopted kind of a phone free mentality and environment, like with his kids growing up, and he just knew information and research about it. So it was always kind of on my radar, but I never had kids. So like I never really understood the impact. And I was actually at a book club and I was talking with one of the moms, and we were talking about like the anxiety that like we're kind of seeing in kids, because as you know, we have friends that could have kids from wee years of 4 to even 20 at this point. So just in our own friend groups, like we're seeing it too, just with our ages that we're at. And honestly, there was this event that a bookstore, bookstore in Cohasset, put on, and it was about this book, Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And it's just, the statistics is just like undeniable. Like he's very good at organizing the research and making his points to like the average person. It is a lot of data, but when you just kind of absorb it in and you like look around even at your own behaviors, at your own life, like some of the kids you might see, and you're like, yeah, this is kind of concerning in terms of like what is like the childhood that kids are getting right now. And I think if you can just be honest with your own screen use, I mean, I can certainly admit that like I've lost an hour of time scrolling. Like it was just as simple as that. And I just thought that this Cohasset event was just so powerful. They had like a very informed physician that essentially had gone into the bookstore talking about this book that kind of started the whole thing. And they really had like educated parents that were involved with like a Wait Till Eighth pledge, a father that was a teacher that had kids that were impacted. And then they had like a student panelist, and I just loved how it was run and the natural dialogue that was going on like in the community. And I literally just did like a Facebook post. It was just like, so like what is Situate doing about this? And I got like 60 or 70 responses of they're like, yeah, what is going on with this? So I actually created like a sub group, just to kind of have discussions about that. And really just grassroots efforts, like just met up with some parents and was like, hey, what are you seeing? What do you like? What don't you like? And we've been brainstorming every month since. So it really just had like a really natural progression.
I mean, it's so good. It's so good that you're getting involved. It's perfect timing.
It's so fun to me because like one of the main tenets of the book is like community, like where has, and I mean, you've probably heard that. I mean, the Sergeant General's like signing off letter was literally all about how there's just like this fundamental lack of community anymore and like the impact that's having. So it's literally fun for me to kind of get to know people and like where they're coming from. And even though my kids aren't where they are, I can empathize for them and kind of have awareness. So it's like it really is this village of like just understanding each other. Like there's no judgment. It's just like, okay, is there anything we can do? And then we just kind of group think. And it's really nice. So
Oh, that's so great.
especially being a new mom, that like, it's a big lifestyle change. So it's very rewarding to me to one, get to know people in the community, but to actually, potentially be doing something that will better my child's experience growing
Yeah.
up. So I think it's amazing. I really do.
Yeah, that's so great. It's so great. So with with doing this kind of grassroots effort, which I'm excited that you're mentioning, because I feel like people aren't really, I feel like a lot of people maybe are forgetting or not taking an effort in that way to sort of make a grassroots like scenario like this. But it is so important. And you're right, you are building a community. So it's important for so many reasons. Where are you guys at now in the process of like creating a structure or a system or like where are you guys at now?
So right now, we probably spent the past few months really kind of like taking feedback, evaluating what's really kind of plausible. I mean, this is such a complicated um topic in terms of, there are regulations and laws and safety concerns, et cetera. So like, might be things you want that just literally might not be compatible. But where we kind of landed was it's really just about partnership. So
Mm-hmm.
we're essentially, we just formed, literally last week we formed a nonprofit called South Shore Digital Wellness. And I hope to have a website up that will have resources by age for parents. Essentially, as you know, there's so much information out there. We're all busy. It's overwhelming. You can go down your own rabbit holes. So we're hoping to have a website that kind of makes it cleaner, simpler,
Mm-hmm.
share some data, not drown parents in it,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of have local, screen alternative options that maybe real parents have experienced that they liked, they thought was good for their kids. And then also address the mental health component. So also have maybe good therapists, resources, if parents are having any challenges. So
Mm-hmm.
the thing that's so fun about it is it's going to grow as we get feedback. So, we hope to get to the point that we're going to do like events, like whether it's one or two a year, just on something that's, top of mind. So we're hoping to do an event similar to this Cohasset one that inspired me in May, I'm hoping. So, again, just to kind of get the dialogue going. And we're going to host a book club, just again, kind of pick relevant reads to kind of how people are feeling, what's going on. It won't all just be like tech talk level, but, it could be different perspectives, et cetera, different age groups. And again, just to get more opportunity for community engagement, just dialogue, talking to other parents. And,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can partner with the schools to put on events. And, I would ultimately love to see like a digital wellness board within the town that's like really a district level. That would be amazing. That would
Mm-hmm.
be the goal. Like that would
Okay.
be great. That it's just looking like a top-down approach. It's not just each
Mm-hmm.
school looking at themselves. It's like, okay, what's happening to this fifth grader is happening to this fifth grader at a different school. So I'm hoping that's what our nonprofit can kind of facilitate, is if we have an event, it's open town wide. And again, it's just about partnership. Like I don't think it's easy to be in a school administration or teaching position right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I think again, engagement, dialogue with the school community and the parents, we can really build a community and a support system, that it's not just like all what's going on at school. It can be home routines, it can be community options, for kids to have outlets other than, being on an iPad or, screen
Mm-hmm.
time. And again, our whole point is not anti-tech, like it's coming, it's happening. It's about really just being informed what's out there, the considerations you might want to have. And then you just come as you are and take what you want from what we're showing you. Like we're not telling you
Yeah.
a prescription of how to live. Many parents have lived through a lot more than me. Their kids are older. But I really am just trying to, get support where it's needed. And, hopefully some of these younger kids coming up won't have to have the same challenges, because more parents have just like opted to not have the smartphone, or, just choose to have a little different, lifestyle preference. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Yeah.
I want to go back and talk a little bit about like what are some of the effects on the kids.
So no, in terms of just like there's foundational harms in general that's the concern. It's like attention fragmentation, like the ability for kids to focus.
Mm-hmm.
It's sleep deprivation. It's social emotional skills, like literally just fundamental maturity. Like the kids are not emotionally resilient because they're just not having the social engagement to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the areas that we've been really focusing on and hoping to pilot for the spring is like really getting play groups with the elementary school age happening. Just more activity for the kids. I think you told me that in Canada they're like the gold standard with this, actually. Like they really
Mm-hmm.
integrate play very well. But we're hoping to kind of build more play opportunities, because the whole idea of like unstructured play is that there isn't a set expectation, because right, that's another underlying component of the anxiety impacting kids, is like this pressure that seems
Mm-hmm.
like it's coming younger and younger. So our idea is really just kind of, again, to build kind of these community outlets that kids can just play,
Mm-hmm.
and there isn't a set outcome, and there's benefits to mixed ages. Again, it gives some of the older kids an opportunity to be like leaders or like big brothers, quote unquote. There's so many benefits to it, just like the self-regulation, as that goes on at playgrounds. I mean, it's a benefit. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's how the kids kind of learn social cues, etc. So that's an area that we're definitely trying to focus on for the spring. So we've
Mm-hmm.
been partnering with like one of the elementary schools, and there's definitely interest with other schools. And what's so great is the Situate parent community is amazing in terms of they're really like taking it on as their own. So, they understand there's limitations with what the school can do, in a given year. So they're doing it on their own. They're planning meetups. They're going to try and do it before school. Like they're really taking initiative. So it's great. Yeah. So that's really one of the benefits that will come from all of this too.
Oh, that's so great.
It is. It really
Yeah,
is.
it'll
It's
be
pretty
fun. It
cool.
sounds fun too,
It
even just for the
is, like,
parents
like,
too.
I can't wait for the spring, like, to see, like, what actually pans out, but there are some really cool, fired up parents that, are
Yeah.
doers, and I think that's awesome, so
Yeah, that's
they're
so
they're
great.
my kind of people, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Katie, I would love it if you would take us through your motherhood journey. Like, what was your experience becoming a mom? What were your expectations of becoming a mom? And then what kind of, you know, did you
So,
find?
no, 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 I don't mind. No, I know it's like I'm trying to remember yesterday because, there's been like sickness in the house, so lack of sleep, teething baby. I'm like, "Oh yeah, where did this all start?"
Yeah.
Um, no, so essentially me and my husband, who Pat, I guess we're high schoolish sweethearts, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't even know what. It's probably been 20 years. Like you just lose. It's so crazy to even say that out loud, but yeah, 20 years probably. Um,
So cute.
and we just were kind of living. We were working, doing the college degrees, like growing a career. And I think like literally one of my best friends, Meg, was just like, so like, what are you guys actually doing? Like, like mid 30s, like it's not going to be a good time if you like decide like later. And she knew it wasn't even, it was just like not top of mind. It was just like we were living, and it was just this random conversation that we had like one night on her deck, and I was like, oh, like I guess we got older. Like, like when you've been with someone for like 20 years, you don't age. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we need to like evaluate like what's going on if we're gonna, procreate like people. And I didn't even think of it, just because I went off birth control in my 20s because my mother had breast cancer that fed off of like our hormone receptors. So I like proactively went off it. And I guess I just never thought of it. Like I just was like, oh, I just like didn't get pregnant. But because it wasn't like top of mind as a goal, I wasn't like, concerned or researching it. And we ended up going to the doctor, and I was just like, yeah, like, I guess I should just like check
Mm.
in. And they were like, oh, we can, test your reserve. And they were like, oh yeah, it's kind of low. So like, you're geriatric. And like, Jenny, you've known me a while. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
am like like I don't like to take medicine unless I need to. So like the fact that like I'm at this doctor's office in general, like in this like scientific setting, and they're calling me old, like politely, I'm just like, I was like, okay. So like I got like totally grounded on how old I was, like just from that experience. Um, but yeah, essentially we ended up going down the IVF route because essentially what I was told was, like you'll be able to have one, but if you want more than one, you would, based on like the reserve number, that like you should do IVF. And so of course I'm just like mind blown like by this like whole journey I was not like planning on going on. And essentially we did IVF. I was very fortunate in terms of I only had to do one cycle.
Okay,
Um,
good.
well, I did tell you this. I had like a little mishap on the final embryo count. There was like, again, me and science, like, uh, but yeah, I ended up confirmed with two final embryos, and those are my girls. So I was lucky that they both
Oh,
took,
God.
and it was worth it. And I have so much empathy. And I mean, I saw so many moms like when I was going through the process, and I don't know, maybe moms are just, I don't know. I feel like I just had such honest conversations with moms at like the IVF office. Like they'd be like,
Mhm.
oh, like this is like my whatever time, and I would just be like mind blown. And I would be like, you're like a superhero. Like that's amazing. And
Wow.
and yeah, like so I was very, very fortunate. But yeah, I would not say like it was the way I would prefer. Like again,
Yeah.
probably not like not a recommendation per se. And then yeah, essentially in terms of the birth part, again, I was like living the dream of like I had such a great pregnancy. Oh my god. It was like
Oh,
Sierra was like
good.
all I ate was pastries like the entire
Oh.
pregnancy. Like I was like I had like the pregnancy glow. I was just it was COVID. It was that whole dynamic. So like
Mm.
everyone was in a bubble. I was working from home. I was like, as soon as I'm done, like I'm laid up, like I could just nap on the weekend. Like it was honestly like I'm not gonna lie, COVID wasn't the worst for like being pregnant for me. I
Yeah,
I
that's
personally
true.
just like stayed in a bubble. Like yes, some fear mongering, etc. of like leaving the house, but no, I really enjoyed it, but I kind of like, again, you don't know until you've gone through it, but like I was like, oh, I'm going to have like a natural birth, a doula, like, someone did try to hype me up on the whole placenta tea thing. I never went that
Yeah.
far. Um but like I really was like into the experience. I was doing like all of these like exercises and stuff to like help it go along, like yoga, all of that. And essentially I went into labor, and it was like quote unquote normal. Like I went into the
Mhm.
hospital, it was like 3 centimeters. Um and essentially I was just like in agony, like to the point that like I couldn't stand. So like,
Mhm.
I just had like a really long labor. So I just got tired.
Mhm.
And so then they were like, well, you need to lie down. Then I ended up on like medicine, and
Yep.
that was not the experience I wanted at all, like at all. But it kind of, it just kind of kept going sideways, like a little bit more. Like it was like,
Hmm.
and I was so adamant, and I'm not
Mhm.
even mad at any of the providers because they did respect what I wanted, my birth plan. Like
Mhm.
I was like, because like I'm trying to remember, like the guidelines was like, so if you're advancing and the baby's heart rate's okay, and like my heart rate's okay or whatever, they let you, they let you progress. Like they let you see how far you can go. And
Right.
I went 4 days. Um, yeah, and
Stop.
and unfortunately, like I tried the pitocin to like speed up the labor.
Yep.
Baby's heart rate drops. And
Okay.
so the baby couldn't tolerate the pitocin to speed it up, but I was
Okay.
still advancing ever so slowly.
Oh,
So because I was stable, they were like they still like respected my wishes, and I had the doula there kind of advocating. Like I mean, it was like
I mean, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I mean, like in terms of like that was great. In terms of experience, hindsight, like that was like way too. That was like aggressive.
Yeah.
But then what happened was, I was at like 9.5 centimeters, and the baby was starting to be in distress. So they were like, if you're gonna push, you have to push now. And I
Wow.
pushed like, I don't even know. I pushed for like 3 or 4 times. She like technically got out, but didn't get out. And
Oh
then she
shit.
pulled the cord.
Oh
So she
shit.
was cutting off the blood supply to herself. So then it became an emergency C-section on like day 5.
Oh
And I
girl.
I was just like so like I mean honestly that's why they call it a traumatic birth experience. I mean,
Yeah.
I was totally expecting like it wasn't going to be a good time, but like not that I was going to end up on like a table.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, and I only realized it in hindsight with my second birth, which was a planned C-section,
Hmm.
was that like one in an emergency scenario, it's like they're just trying to get the baby out, right? Like it's like they're literally trying to keep the baby like safe, alive, all of that. So
Yeah.
I felt a ton of pressure. Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't say pain, but
Yeah.
because like the baby was in the canal, it
Right.
was a lot. You know what I mean? It's not just like the baby was like sitting there happy. It was like the baby
Right.
was down. So they
Oh.
like literally, yeah, it was like a very traumatic thing. And I had a lot of like blood loss.
Oh my God,
So
Katie.
unfortunately for me, it was like I was kind of just put at like a handicap out of the gate. Like I had blood
Mm,
loss. I'd been in labor for 4 days. So the level of exhaustion, like they tell you, like the fluids, I was very swollen because I was on fluid for 4 days.
right.
I had been on like meds. I'm not someone that really takes meds. So
Right.
it was just like a cluster.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I definitely went through it with the birth side of things. Happy
Mhm.
report number 2 was like amazing, just like totally, no, just like hindsight. Like I was just like never experiencing that again. Like planned
Yeah.
C-section.
Good for you.
Had the most amazing doctor at Crown Colony. Dr. Homa, love him, love him.
Hmm.
No, like just such a good person. Like um and he like did like a clear sheet for the C-section.
Oh, cool.
So I was able to actually hold Marley right away. Like I got to see
Oh,
her and hold her.
that's nice.
So like I missed out on all of that bonding with Sierra because I was so laid
Oh,
up. So
yes.
we
Get
didn't
out of
do
it.
like the skin to skin. She went she
Right.
went kind of towards Pat because Pat had been holding her and I was so laid up. I mean, I don't even know. I didn't really I really wasn't able to really hold her for like a couple weeks. Like never mind
Oh,
bond.
that
Like
is
I was just
so scary.
very, yeah, I was very laid up. And then I tried to
Oh,
breastfeed
God.
too. So
Oh,
that was a mess.
Jesus.
Yeah, so but I
Yeah,
love
you
them.
went
I
through
like
it.
them. They're
That's
here.
that's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. No, it
Brutal.
was just like wild. Like it was just like I was like, okay, this is like kind of not fun. And I'm like, this is escalating. And then I was just like literally like out of my mind because I was like on all these like drugs I didn't want to be on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, I'm done. No more kiddos. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We're
yep,
done.
glad to shut that chapter. But
Yeah.
happy what we got out of it, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so happy you shared that just because, I think it's like, it's so valuable to hear different women's experiences with that because it is so varied and
Oh
you
yeah.
can have the best intentions or plan. It's just like you really have no control, really. Like it's,
It's so sad. And it's like, and I don't want to like, and I remember being like, why didn't anyone tell me? And they're like, you wouldn't do it. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I get it.
yeah.
I get it in hindsight. You don't want to like scare someone. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Like, I actually felt like I just came about so much more empowered with Marley's birth of I was
Hmm.
like again, I was like really hung up on like, breast is best and
Hmm.
honestly, I have figured this out in hindsight. Like it was COVID, right?
Yeah.
So um like they really were hyping up breastfeeding. Like, right? They were like, oh, the baby's gonna get antibodies if you breastfeed and stuff. So there was kind of like this weird COVID pressure on top of it.
Yeah.
And then like it was actually, there was the nicest nurse, the cluster feeding night, whatever night that is, the second or third night. I'm exhausted. I've had blood loss. My milk supply is not coming in. I'm stubborn. I'm like, I want this to happen. This is what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like literally crying, right? Like I'm just so exhausted. The baby's crying because she's starving. Like it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like day two, their stomach, like, and this, I'll never forget it. The sweet nurse came in and she was just like, she came in with a bottle of formula
Mm-hmm.
and she was like, there's no reason to suffer. Like she was just so sweet about it.
Good.
Like she was just so good. So I'll like never forget that. And it was just so nice to have that kind of empowerment the second time around of I was like,
Yeah.
now I have two kids. Like I can't deal with postpartum depression when I have another child, right? As stubborn as I
Yeah.
might be. So
Yeah.
you know what? Like this time we're gonna formula feed. Sierra was fine on formula. Like I had
Yep.
all of
Yep.
that like peace of mind going into it. I'm like, I'm gonna know when the baby's coming. I'm not gonna be in labor for 4 days. So I felt like, and actually some of the moms in my town will probably know this too. I like went to yoga like 2 weeks after a C-section. Like not like I was like literally doing downward dog, but I like felt so good, like
Oh,
comparatively. Like
yeah.
because now my expectations were the other way. I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to do anything for like a month. This is gonna be like miserable. And I like felt so good. And
Oh, good.
one of the benefits from the planned C-section as well was, and again, I didn't realize the differences with the emergency versus planned until I had the planned. And the surgeon was like, yeah, so I was able to clean up like a ton of scar tissue because, right, like in an emergency, they just want the baby out, like
Yeah.
safe, like,
Yeah.
and again, I was bleeding, so they didn't have the time to really kind of do like that, like clean button up thing, right? Like they're just trying
Yep.
to get like baby safe, mom stable.
Yep.
And so at the second time, he was like, I was able to actually, get a lot of the scar tissue from the
Oh,
first.
amazing.
And no, it really was. It was so great. And he was like, and honestly, like, I'm glad this is your last one based on seeing like the uterus with the scar tissue. Like, so it
Okay.
all worked out like how it should have. Do you
Yep.
get what I mean? So like
Yes.
it was like I got like complete closure, right? Like I got a nice birth experience. I got like comfort that like my choice to be done because I had my tubes taken out too, was like
Yep.
the right choice. So
Yep.
like that always makes you feel better because yeah,
Yes.
I was pretty rocked. The first one was like
Yep.
I was like, I thought we would be like outside, like, in the sun, like just breastfeeding, like, sitting on like a blanket in the yard. I don't know. I just
Yeah, I
hadn't like,
love it. It's
and
so
I knew
true.
people that had kids and it wasn't easy, but like, again, you have like your own kind of expectations of stuff and
Yeah.
you don't know till you do it. And it was tough. So, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad to be done. I'm just
No,
so glad.
yeah, and I love that you turned it into like such a positive. Like you right? Like you said, you felt empowered your second birth. So
Yeah,
I
because
think
it was,
that's so powerful because you could have gone into that
oh, yeah,
with
and I mean,
tons of
honestly, and I
fear
was
and
terrified about postpartum too because that wasn't even on my radar. Like, I'm gonna be, like, completely honest, like, I had heard about postpartum, but, like, I mean and come to find out, I apparently knew people that had it that just didn't talk about it until I had talked about it, but,
right.
yeah, the postpartum was that kinda came out of nowhere to me in terms of I was just like, I've never not trusted my gut. Like
Mhm.
I'm a very just like visceral, like if this feels right, it's right.
Mhm.
And the postpartum was probably like the first time that I was like, is this actually like as bad as I think it is? And
Mhm.
like I was literally terrified to be home with the baby. Like that's so crazy to me now having two kids. Like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, juggling it now and it's just wild, but reflecting on it again, like COVID really messed up a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and
Mhm.
I think I think for me, just like I was kind of set up for postpartum in a way, in just in terms of the physical fallout. Like there
Yes.
are, there are studies and stuff like when you have blood loss, like your hormone levels, like all of that, like you can be more predispositioned based on how the birth went. And yeah, and honestly, just the environment, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't know who could be around the baby.
With okay, when you realized you had postpartum, did you do anything about it? Like, did you seek out help or?
Oh yeah, like I mean, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Like I just think, and actually I feel like there has been like recent movement even this year for like better postpartum care and whatnot. But
Yeah.
you go to the 6 week checkup and it was like a 5 question thing, and like
Mm-hmm.
you could just say you felt okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't feel like an evaluation. It was like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like there's no follow up. It's like it's very bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, essentially like my red flags were kind of when I started feeling physically better.
Mm-hmm.
I still felt like very uncomfortable, and like
Mm.
I like me, like I've kind of always just been pretty, just confident in myself. Like I wouldn't say arrogant, but I know myself and all of that, and very attuned with myself, I guess. And
Yeah.
I was just really feeling very vulnerable. Like I felt like I was a lot more reactive to like feedback that I would never care about. Like if
Right.
I was like excluded, but not really. It was like I had a baby. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I had a newborn. It's not really that feeling of exclusion. It's like they know that your baby's feeding every few hours, so like that's not going to be like a good time, and you're still healing from a c-section, but like
Right.
I had kind of like lost that like reflection, which was like it bothered me because like that's
Mm-hmm.
not my vibe at all. Like I'm a big fan. Mel Robbins, Let Them, love that. You know what I mean? Like that, I like love that, and that's kind of how I've always been.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really like that. Like things were kind of bothering me more. And the big red flag was sleep. Was I was
Okay.
not sleeping. Like
Okay.
I
And
maybe like an hour.
not just like the not having the newborn, like
Yeah, like
not
I
that.
couldn't
It
go
was
back to
more.
sleep after a feeding.
Okay.
Like I was like literally just like lying there kind of like awake and restless, and again, just probably from like the healing and stuff, it just that exhaustion just never went away. Like I probably needed so much sleep, and I just like
Mhm.
wasn't sleeping at all. So that was kind of my red flag, because like that's not sustainable. Like anyone that's had an issue with sleep, like you need sleep.
Yeah.
So I was, again, during COVID, it was very hard to find any mental health support also, because
Mm-hmm.
shocker, a lot of people were feeling isolated, and all of the counselors were like busy, like they had like wait lists.
Mm-hmm.
And um I I'm not even sure how I got connected with her actually, but essentially like a godsend was my counselor, Lois Friedman. I think I had reached out to her, um and I had to go outside insurance, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a reality now. I think unfortunately a lot of people had to deal with was I went through like one of the hospital recommended things, and
Mm-hmm.
I just, again, I don't like love taking meds. And I just felt like they were like, oh, here's a prescription, like come back, check in with us in a month. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like love this turn and burn like feel of it, because I really wasn't comfortable with it.
Right.
And I was able to find a specific counselor that deals with women's health, traumatic
Oh
births,
my God,
like,
fantastic.
yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like I do the due diligence, like,
Yep.
and she works with a psychiatric nurse as a prescriber. So like if meds are needed, and this nurse is amazing as well. Elise, I'm probably going to butcher her last name, Elise Bacchino. And she was really great because of her experience, dealing with postpartum patients,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So they just were very easy to engage with, and just made me comfortable, and was just really supportive. So I mean, especially in the COVID when you couldn't really get out because you never knew if people were healthy or not, it was nice
Yeah.
to have a regular contact.
Yep.
And then From there, Lois recommended a like new moms group that met online that was
Mm-hmm.
local, so that was great. And then I actually had done an online mums group when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny because it is comparative to like what's going on with the nonprofit in terms of I went in the class that was ahead of me because
Oh,
I wanted to hear how like the 0 to 3 months, like 3 to 6 months journey was going. So I like
oh my God, you're too funny.
I
This
was
is
like
great.
I want like the scoop. So like I was
Yeah.
on like the very like young end. And funny enough, these mums, it was like a national group through Tinyhood, like like a company that organizes like online classes and stuff. And they're like my mummy moon crew. Like we live all over the country and we meet up once a year.
Oh
And
my God, I
it's
love
amazing.
this.
So like again, maybe just this idea of like being comfortable building a community with like-mindedness, like maybe it stemmed from there too. But I mean, I meet up with them every year. We do like a mummy moon. Yeah, it was just really good to have this network built in terms
Yeah.
of getting it back together.
Yeah.
And again, I think coming out of COVID and, getting regulated in general, like giving up the
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding battle, like I was able to recover that much faster because, it does take so much energy when you're trying to breastfeed. So I was actually hurting myself with my recovery because I was trying to breastfeed.
Oh, babe.
Yeah. So, like, again,
Yeah.
hindsight.
Yeah, it's true. You don't know. You're just doing the
Yeah.
best you can, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So all good, but no, I'm
Yeah.
happy to say, like, there was no issue with Marley, like, and that made me feel better too because I was a little like, it's kind of like jarring to kind of like lose touch with yourself for a little bit like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, it was just such a more empowered birth experience the second
Mm-hmm.
time around. And I like had all the mechanisms in place, like, like just in case like the postpartum like happened on the second, like I had everything like lined up, like I had check-ins, I had like a prescription waiting, like just
Good
like
for
all
you.
of it. So I was just able to go into it a lot more like at ease in general. And now I'm just in like the craziness that's life.
Yeah, right.
So,
Now
you
you're
know,
raising the girls.
yeah. And and
Yes.
it's great. I
I
love it.
also too want to touch upon before we get because I do want to get back into the tech, but I do want to touch upon I also want to talk about your career because
Hmm.
Katie, like she's doing all this, but she also has like a full-time job. She's got a fantastic career, 2 degrees and your
Yes.
CPA.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
know. Oh, thank you.
just so we got to make a note of that because that's I mean that's a lot right for any woman
Yeah.
out there who's juggling
Yeah.
a
It,
career and the kids.
yeah.
I think
And
a lot of
again,
people are doing it.
I'd probably say that's not uncommon anymore either.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like, the ages you're seeing of parents and stuff. Like I said, I think me and Pat just were like living our best lives. And I just like really focused on getting my degrees and kind of like growing my career and kind of figuring out what fit. And ultimately I found a niche that I like, that again, it's helping people, but it's just with like accounting practices. So I have a very rewarding position, and it's great, and it's a great role model um to be for my girls in terms of like just the importance of you know being sustainable by yourself too, right? Like,
Yep.
I mean, that's definitely something that I think is a goal for everyone, right? Like you want to be independently sustainable in general. And
Hmm.
I think that's a great model to have. And, my career is great too because I do get opportunities to mentor, which I love. Um,
Yeah.
because it's hard. I mean, so many of these degrees are so general. You can go a million different directions. And,
Yep.
I always like preach the pivot. Like, it's okay to try something and then just change your mind. Like,
Hmm.
there's no loss. Like, if you decide to go like a corporate ladder approach or, a certain avenue, and you just don't like it, it just doesn't like resonate with like what you want to do like for 10 years or something,
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to pivot. Like that's not a failure. That's just
Yeah.
learning. And I really try to kind of mentor the kids on all the different avenues they can go with like their CPA or their degrees. So it's really rewarding. But obviously with COVID, that kind of dropped off a little bit too. But I still
Yeah.
I still reach out and keep in touch with some of them, and that's rewarding. And again, I think that's part of this nonprofit. Like it's great to help other people figure something out, like it's just
Mhm.
so rewarding at the end of the day. Like if you net end up having a positive impact, like it's not a failure. So like even like this nonprofit, like
Yeah.
yeah, we're kind of learning as we go. I mean, I hope people like support the initiative and will donate funds and attend our events, but at the end of the day, it has good intent. So it's
Yeah.
okay either way. Like it's a win-win to me. So
Yeah.
but I'm hoping we can like do some good with it. And then like I said, hopefully, it'll actually, inspire some thought and maybe different considerations down the road for some of like the educational opportunities. So
Yep.
yeah, it's good.
No, it's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's segue then back into tech because I didn't finish all my tech
Okay, no worries.
questions.
Yeah.
Um, so what are some of your tips for bringing screens into your home? Like, is it a don't do it? I know we kind of said had already said like it's not really like a black or white
Yeah,
scenario.
it's I mean, I'm sure you like live it too. It's so hard. Like there really isn't like a prescription of like you do like this amount of screen time, like you're
Mhm.
guaranteed that like your kid will have amazing, attention span, focus and ability. But I mean, I think for us, I think it's really just taking the pause to kind of evaluate like what does a day look like? Like, so one thing we've done and adopted is that it's just literally a little tech box. It's like a literal little wooden box that we put our phones in for at least a few hours. Like, on the weekends, it's like, nope, like we're all focusing on whatever we're doing as a family. If it's like painting, going for a walk, like whatever, like we take kind of scheduled timeouts. We're not perfect with it, and that is not what I am preaching at all either. But
Yeah.
it's things like that. It's just like taking that pause to be like, are we on our phones a lot? Like how
Mhm.
often are like the kids really watching TV? Like is it a nice day and
Yeah.
like we're inside? It's really just kind of this reflection. And honestly, I don't know if you can speak to this. I mean, I know you guys are pretty outdoorsy as well, but like
Mhm.
I see kind of a change in my 3.5-year-old if she's inside watching TV like for too
Yeah.
long. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't talk to her.
Yeah.
Like I feel like she even gets like moody as well. And I mean, she's only 3.5. So
Yeah.
like again, this just feeds my interest of down the road when, there's that many more exposure opportunities. So I mean, I really just think it's like being in tune with your own use, like what you're modeling
Yeah.
and your own child. Like I mean, that's what's so hard to speak to it. Like anything, some kids are going to have a harder time focusing than other kids. Like there's just so many levels to like personalities or just, they're
Yeah.
impacted more. So really just being in tune with your own kiddo and like if how it impacts them, like, right? Like, do they get moody, like, etc. Like, are
Yeah.
they able to hold a conversation? Can they, like, when my daughter's watching like a show, I talk to her about the show. Like, I try to
Mhm.
not leave
Mhm.
her like alone watching a show. I try to
Mhm.
at least make that somewhat engaging, even if she is.
Yeah.
Um, and then, again, the kids are so little right now. We don't have like a dedicated like iPad or anything like that
Mhm.
for them. Just things like that. Like we're not really at the cell phone level. Um, but again, just kind of in terms of consideration, it's like if you're at the point with the cell phone, I feel like the biggest question is like, what do you need it for, right? Like,
Right.
is it to get a hold of them? Does it have to be a smartphone with the internet? Like, can it be a different phone, a phone
Hmm.
like one of those bark phones that has security settings like on it default.
Right.
Again, I think it's just like really reflecting on your family's situation and goals of what you'd like life to be. Like we try to go out for a hike, every week. That's kind of like our church. And
Hmm.
if that's getting impacted from screen time, then like we take pause, right? Like it's like, we
Yeah.
didn't meet that goal we wanted for ourselves type thing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would recommend it. And then, there are different methodologies in terms of the types of shows that kids watch. Like um,
Yeah,
some of these
definitely.
screens, some of the screens like are very fast paced and they really draw the kids in. And I feel like Europe's like ahead of some of this anyways, but like they have dedicated shows
Hmm.
that kind of have like slower frame movement, so that attention isn't as like, consuming. It's not as all encompassing. So, another thing is like kind of go back to the shows you liked when you were a kid,
Yeah.
right? Like we
Yeah.
watch Fraggle Rock, like we
Yeah.
do like PBS, like we like Sesame Street. Um, Again,
Yeah.
I think a lot of this technology consideration, like the wellness component, a lot of it is just like routine and habits, and
Right.
quality over quantity. And I think it's just a personal family choice, and it's not for me to say or judge or speak to, but I think just the awareness that there are problematic behaviors that can come from, too much of a good thing, if you will,
Hmm. Hmm.
is just something that needs to really just, I'd like to keep it top of mind in terms of technology changes so fast. So,
Yeah.
you're waging a battle on an app that's like what TikTok's going to be banned in like 2 days. They're already warning about the next app.
Right.
I don't even know what the next step is. So,
Yeah.
like, I just would like those conversations to continue just so parents know the potential harms.
Yeah.
And if they're comfortable mitigating them, like, all the power to them. That's
Hmm.
all we want to be, is just like a resource and just have dialogue and, just give kids more community based alternatives to
Right.
like just be kids and get that social emotional growth that I feel like is lacking in general.
Yeah. I think you just gave us like a ton of wisdom bombs right there. Like the tuning in, right? The tuning in. I love that you guys schedule your time, like where you kind of unplug. I feel like, it's one of those. It's like if you don't make it a priority, right? Especially when you're parenting, it will fall by the wayside. Yeah, and then just, everything you mentioned about what kind of shows are kind of better, and, just, yeah, and tuning in with your kid, which is probably the most important thing, right? Yourself and your kid. Like that.
Right. And I mean, like
Powerful.
kids get caught up in this themselves. We all did. I mean, we've all had a
Yeah.
rite of passage of everything. But I mean, I think parents do too, right? Like there's
Yeah.
always this like, well, this kid's like watching this in this class, or this kid has this in this class. And I mean, one of the feedbacks that I hear a lot is like that every kid is like coming home saying they're the only kid that doesn't have the smartphone.
Right,
So
right.
it's like it's the idea to give parents this opportunity to have dialogue with like other parents, to be like, no, like you're not alone. There are other parents that are like minded. Yes, it is hard.
Yeah.
No one is going to judge you if you do decide to do some type of phone alternative, etc. It's not a like you're in or out type thing. It's just
Right.
literally the idea of safety, and that parents know what's out there and know that there's some safety solutions, etc., or resources. That's really it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just hope you just hope that you do good, like that net good comes from it. And I think it will. And like, it's again, why are you a nonprofit? Not to make money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So hopefully, even if it just helps build some more community to get people out of like the COVID funk, because a lot of even the school tech, like a lot of the kids have iPads and Chromebooks, and that's inherited from COVID,
Right.
right? And it's like you
That's
can't,
true. Yeah.
it's like, the schools had to adapt quickly
Yeah.
to an epidemic, and a pandemic. And essentially, we need to kind of get out of the COVID bubble for the kids too. So, to some
Mhm.
degree, like I got to do that with my pregnancy journey. And I think I just want kids to kind of be able to have that too. That, I definitely think there was some learning loss. I definitely think there was some social emotional growth that didn't happen from kids being stuck at home.
Yeah.
So I always say this, like helping a current parent helps a future parent, right? So like if I'm helping a fifth grade parent navigate something, that's going to help my kid by the time they get to fifth grade. So like it's
Yeah.
all like a win-win to me. And I just hope like more people think like that too. Because really a parent's the biggest advocate for their kids. So, and I do think schools are great partners. It's just you really need to engage, right? And it's
Mhm.
hard when you're like a two income family.
Mhm.
Meetings are at night, like, getting up to the school. Like, it's just different than how we grew up, right? Like, with what
Yeah.
we kind of had modeled for kind of parents and stuff. So, parents aren't as easily available. Their time is, their time is worth a lot. And, it's a precious commodity that,
It's true.
having them go to a meeting to just talk isn't going to be a good use of their time. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to be very conscious about that with like some of the things like looking into like webinars or stuff like that, that
Oh
it's
yeah.
not as taxing on like a parent that's interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, a lot of this, it is nice just to sit face to face with another parent and chat with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be good.
I want to ask you, I know we're kind of like getting towards the end here. So I want to ask if someone feels like okay, they're really inspired by this conversation, they want to get involved. Like where would you tell them to start?
Um, so there's a lot of good like national resources. There's Wait Until Eighth, which is a pledge with the concept is again this idea that parents aren't in a bubble. So in a given school district, you can go to their website and you can say like, I take this pledge to not give my child a smartphone until eighth grade. And I want to be very clear about this because I think there's like a lot of confusion. It is not anti-phone. It is about a phone with the internet. So that is all the pledges. And the idea is if 10 families at the same school, same grade, all pledge, there'll be like an email that comes out, saying you've activated a pledge. So now you have like a little community
Hmm.
in terms of, when your kids are coming home and saying they're the only one that doesn't have one, you
Yeah.
literally can say, there's 10 families at least that are not doing this in your grade.
Yeah.
I think it's really more, in my opinion, it's really just more comfort to parents to like be strong.
Yeah, it empowers the
Whether,
parents.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
empowers the
like
parents.
whether
Yeah.
or not you engage with these other families, like it's not necessarily the expectation. I mean, that's great. Like I've heard stories that that's happened, but
Mhm.
I think it's just more for the parents to have this comfort that like you're not the only one that like has this mindset. And it's been really successful in a lot of different towns. It's interesting because there are some like valid concerns I've gotten back from it, of like people are like, well, I don't know if I want my information in a database, etc. Totally get it. Like it's your comfort level, but even just
Yeah.
using like there's Facebook and social media pages for it's Wait Till He's Situate. So there's a Facebook page and an Instagram page. And even just engaging with the posts, like with an update. Again, just trying to build community, even if you don't necessarily take the pledge, but you agree with it.
Yeah.
That's also like another goal with the nonprofit is I feel like there's a cluster of parents that literally are kind of like off social media in general.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that's kind of the deal with the devil with like, promoting awareness. You do use social media.
Yeah.
So there is like a cluster of parents that I'm hoping, through the website, we can do like a newsletter. So it's like it's not pushing social media on like parents that have chosen not to use it. Um,
That's a good idea.
we'll have the website up right now. It's not up, but I will share that with you once that's available.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna link all of this in our show notes. So if you're
Perfect.
watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, it'll be in the description box. I'll put a lot of
Great.
the
I also
suggestions.
have a Facebook group. It's called the Situate Anxious Generation Community Discussion. That was the group that I started off of, based off attending that event.
Mhm.
And it has like 240 members. Literally, it's just kind of sharing the latest news, like kind of relevant articles. Right now, that's where we've been posting like events where we're meeting. And we'll have a book club starting. So that's kind of like the main social points to get in contact.
Okay.
Like if there's any interest of growing something somewhere on the South Shore. A nonprofit is South Shore. It's not specific to any town. Um, I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice to be able to help different towns if they're trying to get an initiative or they want to get a speaker or something like that going. That
Yep.
if we're, fruitful, we can help.
Yep.
So that are the best. That's the best ways to really reach out right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. That's great, Katie. And if you want to get in touch with Katie, which
Mhm.
you can do it through the
Yes.
Facebook group. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the runner, so you can. Yep. You can message me anytime. I'm really trying to like build that community thing of like it's not about judgment. It's just about
Hmm.
coming with like where you're at,
Hmm.
hearing what we have to say, and if it sticks, cool. And if it's not, then
Hmm.
that's all right too. Like, God bless.
That's so
That's
great.
it.
I feel like we all need you. We all need a Katie. Because I feel like, people are scared to do that. And you are creating a scenario by you setting that intention where then people won't feel judged.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
not
so hard.
everyone comes with that like openness. So I think that's really powerful. I think for that reason, it's going to be extremely successful.
Oh, thank you. I
I
mean, I
do.
hope so. I mean, that's the whole thing that's like nice about it. Like, there isn't really a defined goal, right? Like, it's a mission.
Right.
It's to help spread awareness and educate. Like, it's not like to get a million likes and you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yes, I
No.
would like to be a sustainable operation that like we can cover our operating costs. That there's the accountant in me. I'm like, yes, I
Yeah.
would like it to be sustainable, but in terms of the goal, it's just like if we can just get dialogue going in good settings with like professional speakers or relevant speakers, like that's a win. So
But I mean, Katie, this has been so great. So much
oh
wisdom,
good.
so much inspiration, motivation, like fantastic guest. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I just
Oh my God,
so
I love what you're
appreciate
doing. I
you.
love this whole like,
Yeah.
get to know other moms' journeys.
Yeah. We need the real talk out there, It's
A
important.
100%. It's so hard, and
Yeah.
people just got to give themselves grace, and they got to just realize other people are in it too. Like nobody
Yeah.
is killing it right now.
No.
Everyone has their struggle or what their balance, if you will, too, right? Like,
Yeah.
and stress is relative. You know what I mean? Like some people can kill it juggling 20 things, and other people can't, and that's also okay too. So
That's very
yeah, I
true.
think this is really amazing. And I've already loved the episodes you've done. Like it's so fun. So
Oh, good.
keep it
Thanks.
up.
Have an amazing day.
You
Big
too. I
hugs.
love you. Yes,
I
have
love
fun.
you. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye, babe.